Hi, my name's Chris. As Steven mentioned, I run all aspects of customer success outside of sales at Heroku, primarily focusing on technical support and technical account management. And I'll be talking to you today, at least to some degree, about how you can engineer your way out of support. So in order to do that, we're going to have to talk about customers. We're going to have to talk about support and a support organization and what that looks like. We're going to talk about engineering and how you can apply engineering to your support organization. And we're going to talk about, throughout the talk, about how all three of these are related to the products that your company is delivering. And at least in the examples I'll use, it's how Heroku is using these three and how they relate to our products. So, technical support. Our user base, Heroku's user base, is nearly 100% developers. And as such, the questions that we get in support are highly technical in nature. We see things from customers like, hey, we just hit 10,000 active users. Our database is falling on its face. It can't keep up with the transactions that our app's throwing at it. Our business is suffering as a result of this. Can you help us get this back online as quickly as possible? Please help. And that's in contrast to less technical questions that other companies might see. For example, my mom might walk into that Genius bar and say, hey, help, I need help getting into my phone. I don't know how to log into my phone. In reality, she's probably going to call me. But so it actually puts us in a very fortunate position because it allows us to hire developers, primarily developers, into the support organization. And I'll get into why that's important a little bit later. So using Google Define, I pulled up this definition of technical support. And it's a service provided by a hardware or software company that provides registered users with the help and advice about their products. And I don't really think that this is so much about registered users with support. I think you should focus on customers. Customers are what's important to a company. Your customers are the ones that are paying you to use your product, and users are the ones that are using your product. And this is a really important distinction if you're at all like Heroku and you have a really extensive free tier. So your customers are the ones that are paying you and generating your revenue, and they're the ones that are keeping your lights on. They're the ones that are paying you your salary. And if you live in San Francisco, you're probably making a pretty decent salary. If you're working for a tech company around here, you're probably getting free lunches at least some of the days. This is an actual picture of the Heroku H made out of a bunch of smaller pictures, which are all of the lunches that we've had over the past 3 years. In about a month, this guy, Mark Benioff, who's the CEO of Salesforce, Heroku's parent company, is going to get up at a huge conference called Dreamforce with about 70,000 attendees. And he's going to pitch to the leaders of the world's biggest companies about being a customer company and how important it is to be a customer company. And in the coming years, if you're customer focused, you're going to win. And if you're not customer focused and you're not a customer company, that you're going to lose out to your competition. And if you're all at like Walter White and you're going to be stacking paper to the ceiling, you're going to have to focus on your customers because that's where the money's coming from. So over the past 6 to 7 years, I've been working in customer-facing roles in various companies. And I've had a lot of time to think about how to deploy support inside of a company and how to apply support to the products that company is delivering. So let me pull up this definition again. And I take a look at it, and I still have some problems with it. And here it talks about the company offering advice about their products. And that seems kind of obvious, right? If you have a customer walk into a restaurant and they're looking at the menu and they can't decide between the Italian wedding soup or the minestrone soup, they ask a question, you're not going to respond and say, no soup for you, come back 1 year. Like, that'd be ridiculous, right? You're not going to have any customers coming in for a while like that. So the other problem with this that I have with this definition is that it defines technical support as a service that's provided to the company. And when I think of a service, I think of something that you're paying for. You typically pay for services. It's also something that can be consumed in a standalone fashion, and that makes no sense for support. Like, if you're going to consume support, you have to be supporting something. You're not just going to show up to some random company and be like, I don't want any of your products, I just want support. So when I think of support, I think of it as the catch-all or the safety net of a product. At some point, the bugs in the product are going to be exposed. You're going to have outages. Your customers are going to use the product in a way that makes the product break. And your support organization are the people that will be there to catch the customer when they're failing. They're going to keep the customer from attriting. They're going to turn that situation around and hopefully turn them back into a happy customer. So when I think of support, I think of it as actually part of the product. And I think that this definition is a little bit closer. So support would be the part of the product that provides customers with the help and the advice that they need. And when you start thinking about support in that way, it opens yourself up to new opportunities. You can start to think about things like, how am I going to scope down the safety net so it doesn't seemingly run infinitely in all directions into something that's much smaller and has boundaries in which you know that your customers are going to fall. So that'll allow you to help them a lot better. Now, I'm not at all advocating that you try and scope this safety net down infinitely small or remove it altogether. That would be as ridiculous as whatever is happening in this picture. Once we're thinking about support as actually part of the product, we can think about how do we apply some engineering to that part of the product to make things better for both the people in support and for the customer. And earlier, I mentioned how Heroku's customers are primarily developers, nearly 100% developers. And so we live by this mantra of be thy customer. And our support staff, since we're hiring developers into the support org, our support staff are equipped with the skills to develop and innovate new solutions to the problems that their customers are having and the problems that they themselves are having. More importantly, it means that our support staff are very much like our customers. And in fact, I would go so far as to say that our support staff are, in fact, our customers. And so when we're thinking about engineering and how to apply it to a product, specifically from a support organization, there's three main areas of focus. There's internal tools, customer-facing tools, and product improvements. And as the name implies with internal tools, these are the tools that your company is going to use internally. And in our case, Heroku has access to these. In some cases, they'll never be exposed to customers. In other cases, they will. So one such tool that we have is a command line plugin called Heroku sudo. And this allows us to run commands on behalf of a user. It allows us to run commands as if we were that user or for them. And it really lowers the barrier of entry to us helping customers. So I'm going to quickly show you what this looks like. All right, cool. Can you all see that? Make the font bigger. So this is our help app, and I can just run HS as an alias for Heroku sudo, and just list out the process table. And I can go in here and do Heroku sudo add-ons open. We'll pull up New Relic since it's, after all, a New Relic conference. And you can have a quick look. And what this is going to do is in this incognito window over here is it launches me in, logged into this account, and it works for any account. Come on, internet. And so it does it in an incognito window, so I don't have to worry about session mismatches with any session that I might be running in my main Chrome windows. There we go. So here we are. And this is New Relic, and if I get out of here. And you can see, we can even go into the new histogram stuff that New Relic released yesterday. So that's a super useful tool that has been built internally and has had huge contribution from the support team. Another thing we have is various parts of the help app. Now, the help app is a customer-facing tool, but internally, what we have is some background workers that go out to any ticket that's been created and post metadata for the application into the directly into the ticketing system. So what we have here is it shows us the category that the ticket was opened against. It shows the owner of the application versus at the bottom you can see that the ticket was requested by somebody else. In this case, it was me versus JD that actually owns the application, which is important when there's a dispute over ownership. It shows us the language, the release history, the process table, domain names, all of the add-ons, the various Postgres instances that are attached to this resource. And this is hugely helpful because if I'm going to go talk to this customer about something, I don't need to look any of this up. All the information's immediately available to me. Another internal tool that we have is called Health Report. And this is a pretty awesome tool. Now this is, where's my mouse? Now this is something that, a health report that I generated against our help app yesterday. So, oops, let me kill that and that. Where's my mouse? Okay. Whoa. So what this app shows me is a few errors that are happening in the app. Most notably here is that the Memcache add-on at the time that I ran this was experiencing high latency. So that might be indicative of a problem to come. If a customer opens up a ticket and is like, hey, I'm having these weird performance problems, what's going on? I don't have to step through a million different things and try and figure it out. I just look right here and we highlighted it already. It's like, hey, maybe your Memcache add-on is not responding properly. They might be having an issue, and that could be the source of it. I can come down here and check out performance and see that over a 60-second time period, the help app itself only saw 27 RPM, so not a huge traffic app at that time, but our response times were pretty good. We weren't throwing any errors at the time. I can come in here and click on add-ons, and I see all the add-ons that I have available to me, and we're even doing health checks against both Redis and Memcache, and we can see that Redis was responding super fast, and in fact Memcache's read latency was very low, but the rate latency was kind of high for what you would want to get out of something like a caching system. So this let's get out of full screen. So as you could imagine, a tool like this would be much better off being customer facing than it would be an internal tool. And in fact, our intention is to release this as a customer facing app in some form or another over the coming months or something. We don't exactly have a timeline for that. And our intention all along with this was to actually roll it out as a customer-facing tool. And anybody with a Heroku account right now can go to health-report.herokuapp.com, plug in an app name that they own or they're a collaborator on, and actually generate a health report against that application. So when we look at customer-facing tools, principally any internal tool that we build, we build it with the intention of releasing as a customer-facing tool. Since we are trying to live by this mantra of be thy customer, it's important to build out a suite of tools that are not going to only be accessible by your internal staff. If we do that and we build up a big suite of tools that are only accessible internally, as time goes on, our customers are going to have to rely on support to get access to the help that they need. They're not going to be able to have these tools to help themselves. So we have a tool that we built called Ssl Doctor, and Ssl Doctor takes an SSL certificate and it adjusts the cert chain to be in the proper order with the right cert chain in the certificate when you upload the cert to an SSL endpoint. This is an extremely difficult thing to do manually. It's been the source of a huge customer pain. If anybody's ever set up SSL on their own, you'll know that it is a pain, unless you're using a very expensive top-level cert provider. And this actually works across any cert provider. And we've seen our ticket volume for SSL-related tickets almost completely ephemeralized when we rolled out this tool to our customers. And what we did before, and it basically just works, and it works all the time. And before we rolled it out to our customers, we'd spent a long time using it internally and vetting out any kinks in it. And that allowed us over time to actually, and as we take that practice, it allows us to actually help our customers and get quicker responses as we're building up this customer-facing tool that when we release it, we know it's going to be very robust. Another customer-facing app that we have is the Help app. And this is the primary interface to Heroku support. And so a couple of the key things on this page are that we show the status of the platform inline in the application. So if you have an issue with your app and you come to the Help app and we have a known issue on the platform, you know it immediately. You already know that we know about it and we're working on it, and you can follow along on the status site for updates. We were at one point getting a lot of tickets about getting started type questions. How do I get things set up and get things running? And we were just linking people back into documentation. So we inline a lot of that here. And then we also inline our most common issues and the most visited Dev Center articles right there under common issues. And lastly, we have the ability to do freeform search for anything that you want, and we're going to bubble up Dev Center articles based on that. And the reason that we put this in place is because a long time ago, we realized that somewhere on the order of 70 to 75% of our overall ticket volume was just linking people back to documentation. So we put this in place to allow them to get to that documentation quicker without having to wait on a human to respond to them. And what we've seen when we started measuring the results of putting this in place is something on the order of 70 to 75% of the users that visit this and type in a search follow the links out to Dev Center articles. And not coincidentally, we've also seen a correlation to a drop in the number of tickets where we simply link people out to documentation being generated. So by actually measuring what's happening inside the app and measuring what's happening inside the tickets, we were able to improve this Help app as a product and overall the support experience, which brings me up to product improvements. So as I'm thinking about applying engineering to support and how it relates to product improvements, I think of a model like this. And at the top is your primary interaction between your support organization and your customers. On Heroku, that's via a ticketing system. Other people might use a phone system, but that's going to be really difficult to pull data out of what the phone call was about. And through the development and the tools that your support org is building, we're able to generate metrics and identify trends. And this is actually something that made me really excited yesterday when I saw Lou announce RubyCon, because I think that fits in so well with this lower right quadrant or lower right circle of metrics and trends, and really being able to go in real time, figure out what's going on, and find out what's happening inside your ticketing system and how it relates to your product. It's worth noting that your product or your support system and your ticketing system holds a wealth of knowledge about how your users are using a product, and more specifically, how it's failing them and what issues are running up against. So you don't have to go out and talk to customers. You're already talking to them, and it's in the ticketing system. They're coming to you and they're telling you what's wrong. Just pay attention to what's happening there. And these metrics and these trends are going to feed into the product lifecycle and drive some of the product improvements. Those product improvements, in turn, are going to loop back up and influence the interactions that the support staff is having on the ticketing system. And what happens when you start to get this thing going is you generate this amazing virtuous cycle where you're constantly iterating on and improving the customer experience based on what they're telling you in the support org. And so we've been working on this at Heroku for a while. So what's it look like in practice? This is some real data that I pulled back in July on database-related tickets. So 28% from the week of July 7th to the 13th, 28% of our ticket volume related to databases was questions, people having problems and just general questions. And 24% of the ticket volume was PG backups, which is a CLI plugin that allows you to take manual backups of your database. So this was concerning, so we dove into it and figured out that the questions were being generated due to missing documentation in Dev Center and some outdated documentation in Dev Center. And we identified a PG backups bug that was preventing the backups from properly uploading to S3. So we went to work, we fixed those with our support engineers and our product engineers, fixed the documentation, they fixed PG backups, and the following week we saw a dramatic decrease in both the questions and the PG backups contribution to the overall ticket volume. So that dropped to 7% on both of those. And what this allowed to happen was other issues to surface that otherwise were being masked by other noisier issues. And so in this case, specifically with the production tier issues, what that was some databases failed, and our communication was not very clear to the customer on what we were doing to fix it. So we're able to identify that and say, okay, there's a communication issue here. The product's actually working right. We went in, we fixed the communication, and saw changes again. So as we've deployed this across the entire company and worked on this throughout the company, we've seen throughout this year a really steady ticket volume. So we have a fluctuation of approximately, when I normalize it, give or take of about 2% in our overall ticket volume throughout the year. And in fact, our last month was one of our lowest ticket volumes that we've had across the board this year. And this is all coming as we've been growing throughout the year tremendously across the entire platform as an organization in terms of adoption and what our customers are doing on the platform. So I guess if you take something away, I think that the best support experience that a customer can have is the one that they don't have to have. The support team is going to be there in time of a crisis, and they're going to save the day when that happens. But it's far better to help your customers avoid a crisis. And by making support part of your product rather than a side thought, you enable your support organization to actually directly influence that experience. And so looking in the past, this is like a decent definition of what people would think of technical support: the service provided by a hardware or software company that provides customers with the help and advice about their product. And thinking about it moving forward, think of your support org as part of the actual product. It's the part of the product that provides customers with the help and the advice they need. And really, that's actually only on the surface. That's what the customers see, and that's the interface that the customers have. And when you dig in a little bit deeper, it's also the part of the product that fixes and improves itself. And in many ways, you can think of your support org as the autoimmune system of the product. So that's all I have. We have 9. Oh yeah, so Jan asked how many support people we have on the team. We have 9 people working in support right now. And you also asked across how many apps. I don't know how many apps we have. A lot? Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, so that's a great question. The question is, a lot of the discussion I had was around the front end of talking to customers and limiting that interaction. But when things break behind the scenes, when servers, like a database server, for example, goes offline, how do you fix that so it lessens the support experience? So I kind of hinted at it in the one slide where I talked about the production tier in our communication. That's actually what we do there is we fully auto recover if a database fails, so we will detect it. And as soon as we detect that database entered a failure mode, we open a support request, a support ticket automatically with the owner of the application and the collaborators, informing them that we know about the issue with their database and we're working on it. And then we go into an auto recovery mode that should bring, and most of the time does bring the database back online, and then we communicate that in an automated fashion back to the user. And in the event that the automation doesn't work, we'll actually page somebody in. So as that happens, the more and more we page people in, the more we go back and look at how do we fix those scripts and continue to communicate that out in an automated fashion. Does that answer your question? Cool.
Have you been able to use your support development to do proactive support, to kind of offer a warning of things to come, and even use your software to affect maybe scaling decisions? So not just the server CPU issues are having a problem, but maybe something is happening in the application that may cause something down the line. Let's scale up, alert the customer that it's happening, and help them fix it, and kind of tie the whole story together as a white glove service.
Yeah, so the question is, have we been able to take some of the development practices, some of these practices that I talked about, and apply them to doing more proactive support? We haven't done a lot of that yet. Some of it, like the health report app is a step in that direction of us being able to identify some issues early on, some of the warning signs like memcache latency, and start to tell you about them and what you can do to fix them. So we can hopefully avoid an application going completely offline in these scenarios. It's definitely a direction that we're looking at going in, and we have some of the early works in place, but not anything substantial to talk about yet.
So I see a lot about reducing support. Is there do you guys have an aspect of feeding back into sales, like opportunities? Do you identify opportunities and feed that back?
Yeah. So the question is, do we feed back opportunities back into sales? Absolutely. So it wasn't really that discussion wasn't really scoped into the talk, but we absolutely do. So if we see a higher paying customer that's having certain troubles, scaling issues, something like that, we'll pull in a salesperson and get them to work closely with that customer to meet their needs. If they're complaining about the price, that's another indicator that a salesperson should be involved, because we might be able to work out a deal that gets them into a good place. Another thing is when we see really large brand names that look like, well, there's a football team around here that I can't say the name of. But we saw some tickets coming from them, and we're like, whoa, like they're using the platform. That's awesome. What's going on? We don't know what they're doing, but that could potentially be a big deal, and we'll bring the salespeople in to work on that and talk to them. And they're really good at finding out what is the business case, why are they looking at using the platform, and then driving a conversation around the business case. The question is, do we prioritize customers for support? Absolutely. We prioritize our VIP customers, which are the ones paying for support. So what they're actually paying for is a higher level of service, tight SLAs around response time and resolution time and things of that nature. When they're doing that, we're also going to give them a lot more attention, escalate things a lot quicker. And then after that, we prioritize based on spend and various spend buckets. And always at the bottom are the free. So we offer support free to everybody, not just our customers, who are our non-paying users. And unfortunately for them, they always have to wait in line. New paying customer is always going to jump the gun on them, but if they want to fix that, they can fork up a few bucks, I guess. Yeah, so that's the question is around customer success, and do we assist users in using the product and doing upgrades and things of that nature? Absolutely, that's specifically what our account managers do. And many times if we see a customer that's struggling, but we think it'll be a good relationship if we help them out, we'll dive in even if they don't have an account manager, and we dive into it by basically showing them this is what it'll be like if you have an account manager. So we show the value up front, and then if they want to adopt it, they can after that. And in the case where a customer does have an account manager, the account manager is the person delivering that white glove service, helping them upgrade, really understanding their business and their use cases and their needs. All right. Well, thanks everybody.